Hey, third grade PLC team. Thanks for joining me today. So I'm excited to start this new unit with you all. Last time we were together, we wrapped up that mid-mod assessment data dive, and you guys came up with a fabulous plan to spiral in some of those concepts that students were struggling with. So as we were doing walkthroughs last week, the leadership team all noticed really great evidence of implementation of using the PLC work and that spiral lesson plan inside the classroom. And so I just, first of all, really wanted to commend you guys on that work, but then ask a specific question around what outcomes are you seeing so far in your students based on the work that you guys have completed in PLC?
Yeah, I've noticed that students are having much stronger discussions. They're able to use academic language to explain their thinking. And I think that this is because we've put an emphasis on implementing more thinking, writing, and talking opportunities throughout our lessons.
Yeah, I agree. And I have also noticed that student work is becoming more organized and methodical based on our explicit modeling of work problems. So I'm excited to see more students annotating the questions, thinking through logical reasoning before attempting to answer the questions.
That is so great. All right, thanks for sharing. Before we jump into our work today, Tanya, do you mind sharing or reviewing our PLC norms for the group?
Yep, for sure. Okay, so being on time and prepared, maintaining a positive and respectful environment, contributing equally, and being mindful of confidentiality.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And then just a quick reminder of roles and responsibilities today. You know, we rotate these each time. So, Tanya, if you will take control of annotating the lesson for us.
Yep.
Suzanne, if you will make sure that we get everything uploaded to the drive that we complete today. And then I'll take some notes on the slides to help track our thinking. Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Okay, so moving in to step one. Oh, our PLC pre-work. Everybody got this? All these pieces? Yep. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So understanding the lesson, purpose, and objectives is our first step in our internalization protocol. So before we jump into this, let's take just 30 seconds and review this exit ticket. Review your exit ticket, your exemplar, and then we'll start having conversation around making connections between the exit ticket and the lesson components, okay? 30 seconds. Okay, everyone good? Great.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So what connections can you make between the exit ticket and the TEAC and the lesson objective that we're looking at today? They're all right here too at the very top.
Yeah. Okay, so the exit ticket asks students to compose numbers up to 100,000 according to their place value. And they also use objects and numbers to compose. So all of this is stated in 3.2a.
And the lesson objective also emphasizes an understanding of the place value chart, and especially the placement of the comma. And those are concepts that are assessed on the exit ticket as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what strategies are required within this exit ticket? What strategies are required?
On questions 1 and 3, students are required to use the place value chart to solve. And then question 3 also asks students to regroup by bundling that group of 10 and moving it to the higher place value.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how does this exit ticket align to our STAR questions that we have?
So we have to start release questions for this standard, question 30 from 2024, and then question 28 from 2023. So in the first question, they should understand 0 as a placeholder. Also being able to create a place value chart and labeling it correctly will be key to know what place value to attach to each of the shown digits in the question. And these strategies will also be helpful for question 28.
Yeah, I agree. So then looking back at our no-show chart, what vocabulary will be most helpful for students to know in order for them to be successful in the lesson?
They're going to need to remember the place value labels from previous grades. And then the ones that are new to third grade are the 10,000s and 100,000s place value.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what misconceptions should we kind of keep in the back of our mind and prepare for?
It's going to be important that students see that both the three first digits follow the same pattern as the next three digits. So ones, tens, hundreds repeats over in the thousands as 1,000s, even though we wouldn't say it that way, but 1,000s, 10,000s, 100,000s.
Yeah, and students are also asked to write the numbers in standard form. So placing the comma to separate those will be important. And then, I can also see regrouping is the biggest challenge in the lesson. Here they see it conceptually. Maybe we should add a teacher model to show what this looks like in a standard algorithm. That way, students can link that same thing as it is happening in each example. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think having an example to model is going to be so important because it links that procedural and conceptual understanding. And we can be intentional about modeling with the language from the place value chart as we solve.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great model to add for the students to see that connection between how they're regrouping with the place value chart and linking it to the thinking in the equation. So let's add that connection to our no-show chart here.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. All right, so let's align. So we have that. Here are the notes, right? So let's align our exit ticket exemplar. So I know you guys prepared these individually, but now we want to pull together and make the best one moving forward. Today I just pulled up Suzanne's exemplar that you uploaded to the drive. Thank you for that. And so let's use Suzanne's exemplar to operate from to either add or take away. So let me give you just a minute, Tanya, and you and I will look over Suzanne's and then we'll add our thoughts. Okay. All right. All right. We ready to add our thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it. You go ahead and get us started, Tanya.
Yep. So I noticed that on my exemplar, I added representing values as a multiplication of units time the number of digits or the units that you would have within a given place value. So for instance, if you have 3,000, like 1,000 times 3. But then, I saw that I was jumping ahead and this will be covered in the next lesson. So I will just go ahead and delete that from my exemplar. But that's other than that, that's it.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense. Thanks for bringing that up because that's something good to keep in mind. It's so easy to hop ahead, right? To jump ahead. So I'm glad that you recognize that and that we're grounding ourselves and learning from each other. So great job there. So now that we have a strong understanding of what students have to do to show mastery with our exit ticket exemplar, let's start to write our success criteria statement around that exit ticket, right? So this will help us, the success criteria, it's going to help us provide feedback as we are reviewing students as they're working independently. It'll help us give us really specific feedback around what next steps do they need to take to show mastery. So really quickly, why don't you guys we're going to all I'll do the same thing, take 3 minutes to jot down your ideas for success criteria that's aligned to the exit ticket. Okay. All right. So what are some things students need to be able to do to show mastery for this exit ticket?
So students need to be able to label their place value chart up to the 100,000s.
Yep. Oh, Suzanne, will you start the list of the success criteria as we're writing, as we're talking? Great, thank you.
Definitely. I also noticed that students need to be able to use a dot to accurately show the digit that it's representing, and be able to regroup when needed by bundling those smaller units into groups of 10 to create a larger unit.
Yeah, and then with that, they need to write the number correctly in standard form.
I love it. Okay, so let me pull up our success criteria that we just created together. Here it is. This looks great. This is a strong list of look fors compared to our specific exit ticket that we're working from. Is there anything else based on our conversation that we need to add to our no-show chart? Oh, no.
Think
All
of.
right. Okay, great. So let's move to the second step of our internalization protocol process. All right, so now let's look at what we have in the lesson script for the concept development for this lesson. So let's think about which parts of the concept development could help us practice the success criteria that we just named together. Before we do that, let me give you just a couple minutes to think through our success criteria as you annotate on your own. But here's the success criteria we landed on. Just want to stamp it all together. We said that in order to show mastery for the exit ticket, that we build and label a place value chart up to 100,000 place value, that we draw dots to accurately represent the digits. We determine if regrouping is needed and represent it by bundling smaller units to make larger units. And then lastly, that we want to make sure that they can write the number in standard form, right? So holding those success criteria in your mind, take time to annotate your script in the concept development around where we can model each of these prioritized skills from the success criteria within the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do this here. All right. Okay, let's come back together. So what are some things that you noticed?
I noticed that all four problems allow us to build and label the place value chart. Students have to draw dots and then write the number in standard form.
Yeah, I agree. And really the regrouping piece is the only one that only problem 4 deals like addresses that piece.
Okay, so keeping in mind that we want to keep the teacher model to 15 minutes at the very most, right? We need to keep our kids engaged. Are there parts that we could prioritize over other parts?
I mean, we could really model all 4 skills if we did problems 2 through 4.
And I would really prioritize problem 2 and 4. Problem 3 is about like reading numbers, and I think we could embed that part within problem 4.
Yeah, I agree. The only piece that I would take out of problem 2 is where it goes into naming 1,000 as 10 hundredths. I could see how that would take a whole separate lesson to really explain that concept to kids.
Yeah, I can see my students getting confused with that piece and then having to stop and explain that particular concept. On this one, it's more about understanding how to bundle the smaller units to create a greater place value.
Perfect. Okay. So then it sounds like we'll model problems 2 and 4 in that teacher model piece for our students. And then we'll make sure that all 4 of those success criteria we unpack together show up. So how much time do we think we'll need to model each of those questions?
For problem 2, let's take about 10 minutes since that's going to be our explicit teacher model. And then in problem 4, we could probably do that in like 5 minutes. but we want to highlight that part because it's addressing the regrouping. But that would keep our teacher model to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yep. And then that will also give us more time for students to work independently in the problem set. So we could change the problem set to 20 minutes.
Ooh, that works. I like that. Okay. So now that we have our pacing down, it's time to practice, our favorite part. So which problem would be most important for us to rehearse today in the group that you want to make sure that you get right during tier one instruction?
Mhm. I think that problem two could help us practice setting up the place value chart with students, with the class and using it to represent the numbers with both the place value discs and the dots.
Okay. So with that one, we have three of the four success criteria statements. So let's also think through the misconceptions and or places where students may get stuck if the teacher's explanation is not super clear.
Yeah, I think that would come in with the regrouping part. I know that some students have a hard time understanding how to decompose the units into smaller ones or compose them into larger ones. So we'd want to have an example or a place to practice where we have more than 9 in a given place value.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Students do have difficulty with that.
Okay. So it sounds like problem four is the one we want to focus on for today for rehearsal. Okay. And with problem four, we can actually practice all four of the success criteria statements, which I love. That's going to be perfect. So let's get ready. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to script out how you would explain problem four in the classroom. And then just remember it's important to explicitly connect the model that we're going to do for students to the success criteria that we've lined out just to really stamp it. Okay. All right. Let's take 2 minutes to script that teacher model. Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So, Tanya, I think it's your turn to start rehearsing first. Yeah. Okay. So, whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. So for this problem, I'm going to double check that my place value chart is set up correctly. Yep, it looks good.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pause you right there for just a second. So, this would be a great place to restate how you would actually set up the place value chart, especially since we're adding a couple of place values onto that chart this year, new to third grade. So, as many times as we can frame that throughout the model, let's go ahead and be very explicit about it.
Okay,
Sound
got it.
good? Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. So for this problem, I'm going to double check that my place value chart is set up correctly. So let's see. I have 3 places for the ones and 3 places for the thousands. Good. It is important that I remember the pattern. So we have 3 places for the ones and then 3 places for the thousands. Now I'm going to check my labels, ones, tens, hundreds. And now we have to do the same on the thousand side. So 1,000s, here remember, I don't have to use the word one, but it helps me remember the pattern. 1,000s, 10,000s, 100,000s, and that make my chart complete. So it looks good. Was that better?
Perfect. I love it. And I love how you move slow, like how you said, like, okay, remember, right? We want to remember these
Mhm.
components. Great job.
Okay. And then, okay, so now I'm going to place six discs in the hundreds place. That means I have 6 in the hundreds place, 0 in the tens, and 0 in the ones. That makes 600. Now I'm going to add 7 discs to the hundreds place. I now have more than 9 in the hundreds place, which means I have enough to make one of the thousands. I will then take the 10 away from the hundreds and add 1 to the thousands. So how's that?
Yeah, I like that. How about if we also modeled like how to count the hundreds? to make the 1,000.
Mhm.
Ooh, I agree. That could reinforce the idea of composition and counting by a given value, kind of like skip counting until you make the next unit.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then I have more than 9 in the hundreds place, which means I have enough to make one of the thousands. Let's prove it. Okay, so with my discs, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. I have 1,000 here. So I will exchange these 10 discs for one to place in the thousands. So that's 1,000. I still have 3 left in the hundreds place. So we have 1 in the thousands place, 3 in the hundreds place, 0 in the tens place, and then 0 in the ones place. That is 1. Remember to put the comma to separate the thousands here. So 1 comma 300. We read this as 1,000. Remember there's a comma here. 1,300. Okay, that's that.
Perfect. Okay. Great job, Tanya. Again, I love how you went slow and really stamped the success criteria. Okay. So, Suzanne, let's just practice the piece where bundling is needed. So we wouldn't normally have both of us, we know, rehearse, but this is one key concept that in this lesson that could lead to misconceptions. So let's make sure that we're both like really strong with this before we leave out. So Suzanne, if you don't mind starting, just pick up where the bundling happens in problem 4.
Okay. 600. So now I'm going to add 7 more to the hundreds place, and that will give me more than 9 in this place value. So I can bundle the hundreds to make 1,000. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. I have 1,000 here. So I can move those over to the next place value, and I still have 3 left in the hundreds, 300. I don't have any in the tens place or ones place. So I would read this number as 1,000, comma, 300.
Yep. Okay. And I think we can close it by reminding them of the success criteria. Something like, remember, if I have 10 or more in a given place value, I have enough to bundle 1 unit of the place value right next to it. So here I have 13 of the hundreds, which is enough to make one of the greater value next to it. For this one, it means I have enough to make one of the thousands.
Yeah, great point. We want to stamp that success criteria as much as possible. So I love that. This will help us give students feedback on the work, and I really think it's going to help it really soak in as they're working through these problems. Okay, so looking back at our protocol, we have worked through these tasks as we've collaborated and written down. So great job, you guys. All right, let's look at step 3 in our protocol. Okay, so looking at step 3, what are the specific questions and tasks that we want students to practice independently to reinforce our success criteria and learning objectives?
Mhm. So in the problem set, I was for sure wanting students to have time to do 2A. I like how it has them practice with a number that has 0 in one of the places, like as a place value holder. It also asks for standard form, and it gets students to practice labeling the place value chart. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, absolutely. That hits a lot of our success criteria. So, what misconceptions do you anticipate students may struggle with 2A?
So for this one, I was thinking that we would want to make sure that we monitor as students label their place value chart, especially for that 10,000s place since it's new. So if students need feedback for this, the lesson actually has some great scaffolding language that we could use to reinforce this idea. So I'll highlight that. It's at the top of page 115. So we've got that scaffolded language if we need it.
Ah, great idea.
I also really like 3A and 3B. I noticed that there are similar questions to this on the release star that we looked at, and it hits success criteria 1 through 3. I think a student struggle that we would want to be aware of is if students miss the correct place value order to write the number in standard form.
Yeah, yes. And definitely this is one that I also think it's important for them to practice. For this one, I want to make sure that students are drawing their place value charts or using the label ones if they have that accommodation.
Yeah, I love that this question covers all the success criteria. I hate to harp on the same thing, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Um, if the students need the scaffolding of the place value chart and dots, that's great. However, it'll also give us good data for those students that don't use the place value chart to answer the question, right? Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And then I was also thinking we could use for all the students to practice number 5A, well, like three, the five, and then A, B, C, so 5A, 5B, 5C. So this one pushes students to regroup and use their bundling strategy. We also, with the bundling strategy, we also want to be able to monitor for appropriate bundling and regrouping, zero as placeholders. So kind of goes back to the misconceptions that we were talking about. And definitely these, 5ABC are going to give us good data to see if students are conceptually understanding the base 10 concept and what to do if we have more than 10 within a given unit and then knowing that you have to bundle 10 and then move one to a higher place value.
Yeah, I like that. I was wanting us to include that one as well.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay. So out of the questions we have left, which ones do we think would be best for students who would need that extra push and challenge of some extension work?
Mhm.
Number 4 could be good as an extension problem because there's not a scaffold, like they're not forced to use a place value chart to solve, but they could choose to. But I think that it would be great to challenge students not to use the chart, and then that would let us know kind of how well they are using mental math and kind of have that conceptual understanding of place value without the scaffold of the chart.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Mhm. Yeah, perfect. And I was also thinking we could use 6. I like that it is an open-ended question and students practice problem-solving skills.
Ooh, yeah. Sorry, I was just wanting to scroll down to 6 real quick. Ooh, yeah, I like that. Awesome. These are great ideas for extension. And so let's jump into discussing what engagement strategies you would want to incorporate to maintain engagement throughout class.
Since we're going to start with problem 2 and the concept development as our explicit teacher model, we need to make sure that students are mimicking like what we're doing in the modeling. They're doing that on their own paper.
Yeah, I like that.
And then at the bottom of page 115, where the script says, teacher, draw another 1,000 on your chart, we could use the strategy right pair share instead of just doing like a whole group call and response.
Mhm. Yep, I agree. And that would be a strategy to use here. I was also thinking we could add complexity by stealing one of the numbers from problem 3. So we have 67,043 for students to use the same engagement strategy and also practice the concept of zero as a place value holder. They will also practice representing it with dots on the chart, writing the number in standard form, and then reading it out loud.
Yeah, I like that. And then on number 4, I was thinking that we could use a similar engagement strategy. Students can think and write independently first, and then turn and talk with a thought partner. And we can make sure to listen to student responses so that we can call on students that have correct thinking to share out with the whole group.
Mhm. Yep, and it might also be a good idea to start with manipulatives on this question and then move students to working on place value charts by representing, on the place value chart by representing now the numbers or the digits drawing dots. So,
Agreed. I love the scaffolding that's offered for the whole group within this.
mhm.
And then if time allows, I really like the extension number at the top of page 117 as a challenge for all students. I think it would give me good data before we move into independent practice to see who has a good handle on regrouping. And I hate to sound repetitive, but I think pair share would be a great strategy here as well.
No, I get it. I agree. So now that we've got some good engagement strategies and we have those jotted down for our annotations, let's talk accommodations. So, thinking specifically for our ELL students and our SPED students, what do we need to make sure we have in place to help them succeed?
So the place value charts are accommodations that SPED students could have all the time. So, if you're routinely using those in the classroom, and they can also use it as a scaffold in assessments. So I think it is important to ensure that they're comfortable using these charts for support.
Yeah, definitely. And then for our ELL students, it might be good to start with manipulatives that are labeled and that have the value inside of the disc to practice reinforcing with that visual, and then bringing in an anchor chart to help tie the learning and the academic vocabulary together.
Yes, agreed. I love the idea of the anchor chart. These annotations sound fantastic. I feel like this conversation has been very strong. I'm excited. I'm really excited about this lesson. Okay, so last but not least, organizing our resources. What do we want to make sure that we have on hand for this specific lesson? What resources are needed? What supplies are needed?
Yeah, I actually started making a list. I just jotted it on page 110 as we've been talking. So here's what I have so far. Print the blank place value charts on page 126, one for each student, and then might want to print some extras just to have them on hand because we do want to make sure that students that have accommodations are using these routinely and effectively, like Tanya mentioned, so that it can be a helpful resource on assessments. And then also having the place value disc manipulatives. You see anything that I'm missing?
All of those sound great. And we could also add the anchor chart to that list. I think we said we wanted to use page 116 as a guide for what to include and label on the anchor chart.
Yep, great catch.
Mhm.
Okay, I love it. Great teamwork today, you guys. So Tanya, thank you again for annotating for us as we go. Suzanne, thank you in advance for grabbing that work and uploading it to our shared Google Drive so we all have access. I can't wait to come in on Wednesday and watch this lesson go live. So we'll see you all then.
Yeah,
Hey,
super excited
sounds
about
great.
this lesson. Yeah.
We did it. Stop. Hold on. Stop share.